Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT. I came here to talk some boxing up with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Now, where's my brethren? You know what? This is a first. Where's my brethren in the LDBC? I never said that before, but word to you guys out there because I've been on YouTube today. I've watched what? I watched Boxing Eagles video. I watched Black Fight Fan TV's video. And I watched Fanon International's video about Eddie Hearn and this whole reported, announcement he set to make, because there was an article published recently on Ring Magazine. In fact, it was yesterday. There was an article published basically saying that Eddie Hearn is going to announce a major streaming partnership with a company called DAZN, which they actually have some partnerships with the NFL in Canada. So they're not, the DAZN is not, from what I read, they're not new to streaming big time sporting events. So interesting stuff. But it has a lot of people pissed off because of the fact that they're going to charge $20 supposedly. Hasn't really been confirmed yet, Eddie Hearn, because you wait for the press conference. There'll be a press conference soon, so a lot of this stuff will be probably confirmed tomorrow. But the price point, generally speaking, is usually $20, and they anticipate that's what Hearn will charge to watch Matchroom fights on DAZN. So DAZN is going to be a streaming platform that he's using. They're going to carry 40 boxing cards next year. So 40 boxing cards for Matchroom boxing. 16 will be in America, 24 will be in the UK. And I was just sitting, I was listening to all these videos, man. Like, dudes are mad, and I understand. Like, honestly, I have my concerns. I really do. Like, I genuinely, my objective opinion, I love Eddie Hearn. Like, you guys know I love Eddie Hearn. I think he's brilliant for what he's done in the UK with boxing, and I think he's great at putting on events. But I think it's going to create a roadblock for the Wilder Joshua fight. I mean, it has the potential to be that, although it did specify in the article that Joshua isn't likely to appear on the DAZN platform because he's a pay-per-view attraction. So if you can charge, because in the UK, I don't know what the pay-per-views go for. I hear they usually go around for like $30, if you transfer the money, it's like $30 American dollars, $25 American dollars. So if you can charge for them that much, a bit extra for pay-per-views, why would you put them on a platform where you're not going to make as much off of the guy who makes you the most money? It makes sense. So Anthony Joshua might not fight on the platform, but I could see it as a potential roadblock for other fights. Now, for those of you guys who can see the big picture, because a lot of times boxing fans, and I'm guilty of it as well, we don't look at the big picture. I've known for years. Like, I think since 2015, the first time I thought to myself, man, boxing is going to go in the direction of streaming was like late 2015. I remember I was watching a Michael Montero video, shout out to Michael Montero, and he kind of mentioned it. And then, like, you saw streaming into, like, you saw the streaming is, Netflix, Hulu, all that stuff. That was kind of the route the world is going in. So why wouldn't boxing go along with the rest of the world if they're trying to compete? So Golden Boy, I remember, was one of the first people to do any sort of streaming. And then now other people are following suit. YouTube TV is the thing now. That's how I watch a lot of the fights for Showtime on YouTube TV. So to get to the Eddie Hearn thing, I mean, I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned that it's going to cause a lot of roadblocks for fights. But at the same time, it's like, okay, it's very possible that when it comes to those bigger fights, he's going to put them on pay-per-view anyway. So you might not even have to pay, not pay the zone, but it's causing more, it's causing box fans to pay more money. Not everybody's rich. I'm not rich, I'm not rich. So it's definitely a concern. But I was just watching all these videos, man, on all these different channels, and they were just hating on the man. Black Fight Fan TV called Eddie Hearn an idiot. And I'm like, man, okay, you can hate the guy. You can have your opinion. You can call him a hoe as many times as you want. But, like, dude's doing numbers. He's taking Anthony Joshua from the Olympics. And mind you, I want you to keep in mind, Anthony Joshua's not the first Olympic gold medal heavyweight boxer Eddie Hearn had. If you guys remember, he had Ali Harrison when he took over Matchroom boxing from his dad and had all that pressure on him because his dad was a hell of a promoter back in the day. Ali Harrison, he failed miserably with Ali Harrison. Like, Ali Harrison, for lack of a better word, wasn't shit as a pro. And Eddie Hearn failed miserably with that. And he was, Frank Warren was still ahead of him. And it's been over the last couple of years where Eddie Hearn has made these deals to put his fighters ahead of Frank Warren, to pretty much have British boxing for the last couple of years in a Cobra clutch. And now he's built up Anthony Joshua. He's taken the risks, so he's overpaid a lot of fighters to make Anthony Joshua one of the biggest stars in world boxing today. So you got to give him credit for that. You can't just call him an idiot for that. But I understand, with a lot of people that don't like it here, that they're speaking from emotion, and I get it. But one thing that was funny is and one thing you guys got to know, because I'm not talking about boxing ego in this case, because he goes to more fights than I do, and he's spoken to Eddie Hearn, he's interviewed Eddie Hearn, so this is not directed to a boxing ego. But for channels like Hearn International, Black Fight Fan TV, guys like that, they ain't going to fights. They ain't met Eddie Hearn before, and I know they're gonna say, well, what does that have to do with anything? If you met Eddie Hearn and you really talked to him, you know that when he does something, he's not gonna do it. He's not gonna do it without doing his due diligence. He's not gonna do something half-assed. So my thing is this: he's gonna have 16 cards here in America. He only has one American fighter that's officially signed to me. I know Joe Miller is kind of signed to Eddie Hearn, but he also still has stuff like Greg Cohen and other promoters. So he's not fully signed to Eddie Hearn. They just have a working relationship. So really the only fighter Eddie Hearn has is Daniel Jacobs, okay? With that being said, if he's going to put on 16 cards in America, logically speaking, he's going to need American fighters to fill those damn cards. So I don't know who he's going to sign. I have no way of knowing that. But because the press conference is supposed to be tomorrow, when he announces this tomorrow, or Friday or Thursday, when he announces it, you can expect the announcement for the streaming service, but don't be surprised if you start hearing hella fighters signing with him, because the same channels like Black Fight Fan TV and Hearn International, those same two channels who basically they were looking at, they read maybe the first paragraph or so, but didn't continue reading down like you're supposed to do in school. If they would have just kept reading, they would have found out that in the article it also mentions that according to sources, and I don't know, Ring Magazine's a pretty reliable source, so if they're saying according to sources, you gotta at least consider that it might be true. According to sources, fighters like Jermell Charlo, Keith One Time Thurman, Sean Porter, big names in the Al Haymon stable, and they're among the targets that Eddie Hearn is either signed or trying to sign or whatever. And honestly, for those of you who like Al Haymon, you guys gotta understand too, Al Haymon is not a promoter. He can't be a promoter. He can't get a promoter's license, because then he'll be in direct violation of the Muhammad Ali Act. He's still, in some ways, I think, there's loopholes to get around it, and he's done a hell of a job of getting around it. But he legally cannot get a promoter's license. Okay, he can't. He can get federal prison time. Okay. That's why when you see fights made in New York, he goes to the likes of Lou DiBella. He goes to the likes of TGB Promotions. He goes to the likes, people like that. When he brings shows to Miami, because I've gone to Al Haymon shows here in Miami. He goes to the likes of Warriors Boxing, people like that. So he's got his people that he uses, and he gets basically pulling the strings in the background and spreading the money. But he's not actually the one promoting the fight. So any Al Haymon fighters is fair game. Is fair game, because he is not a promoter, he's an advisor. So you don't be surprised. I'm just saying. I'm not saying I know anything. I'm not saying that I have these sources. I'm just saying don't be surprised if along with this streaming deal you hear that he signed top Al Haymon fighters. Who knows, man? Maybe the reason Keith Thurman vacated the belt is because he's gonna fight on the zone, and he's gonna Eddie Hearn had him signed already. They kept it under wraps, and I don't know. You never know. Boxing's a crazy thing, so you never know. But, yeah. My thing is this: Eddie Hearn hasn't even announced it yet. He hasn't even specified the details, and it's hilarious too, because the same people in the LDBC who crucified Hearn, or not just LBC, YouTube in general, the same people on YouTube who crucified Hearn, for the whole $50 million thing and whatnot, are the same ones crucifying him for a press conference that hasn't even happened yet. So I would say, you wait, you make your videos, you voice your opinions. You can say, well, if he winds up going about it this way, then I'm gonna have a problem with it. That's fine, but don't come out like it's already happened. Like it's already happened, and he specified all the details. Like you don't know what's coming. You don't know what's coming. So, and if there's one thing I know about Eddie Hearn, it's like he's always got something up his sleeve. So, we'll see what happens, man. But I'm interested to see what's gonna happen, because in the U.S. we got the likes of ESPN. Now we got the likes of HBO. We got Showtime. And now with the Zone, that's adding a fourth head to that already big amount of outlets we have in America. And who's to say it couldn't be a good thing? Who's to say it couldn't be a good thing? Because a lot of times, and I'm gonna use the LDBC. I'm gonna use the frustration the LDBC has against them. A lot of times, when I go on your guys' channels, I hear you guys complain about like fighters not being active, fighters not getting fights, fighters not getting dates. Al Haymon has them on the shelf, and you get mad about that, right? And who's to say that now with Eddie Hearn having bigger, because he's gonna get some, the licensing fees he's gonna get is gonna allow him to pay fighters more on the streaming service. So because of that, now he can sign the top guys. And unlike, I want to throw no salt at Al Haymon, but like honestly, unlike Al Haymon, Eddie Hearn's track record, if you just go look at how he's handled his British fighters, there's probably no other promoter in boxing, maybe except maybe, let me see, can I even say Bob Arum really? Because yeah, maybe Bob Arum, because Bob Arum does a good job with like Shakur Stevenson, guys like that. Like besides maybe Bob Arum, ain't no other promoter in boxing who has who's done a consistent good job at keeping his guys active. And I'll take it a step further. There is no promoter in boxing who has done a consistent job as far as promoting his top level guys in the big fights and getting the fights that people wanted to see. People wanted to see Kell Brook fight Errol Spence. He fought Errol Spence. People wanted to see Tony Bellew fight David Haye. He fought David Haye twice. People wanted to see Joshua Klitschko. He fought Klitschko. He fought Parker. So he's not only keeping his guys active, but he's keeping his guys active in the fights that people have wanted. Now, if you got mad with the result or you didn't like the fight, how the fight played out, then that's not. He can't control that. Like he can't control that. Whatever. His job is just to make the fights happen. Whatever happens after that, that's the case. But there's just so many ways you could look at this. Like, I could definitely, it could be a potential roadblock for a Joshua Wilder fight. It might not even be a factor in the Joshua Wilder fight. We don't know. That's why I'm saying we should wait for the press conference because he'll probably specify more there. But honestly, let's just use some common sense for a second. If there's 16 boxing cards in America, Eddie Hearn is going to need American fighters to fill those cards, to headline those cards, to co-headline those cards. He's going to need fighters to fill those slots. And if he only has one, which is Daniel Jacobs, and this is no disrespect to Daniel Jacobs, but Daniel Jacobs, while he's still a top middleweight, he's probably seen his best boxing already. I think it's fair to say he's 31 years old. He's probably not going to get any better. So with that being said, he's going to need to sign not just American fighters, but top-level American fighters with a name, who are exciting, who he can do something with, So just imagine, right? Because I have my complaints about why certain Al Haymon guys aren't bigger stars. You look at a guy like Jermell Charlo, right? Either one of the Charlos, but we'll say Jermell because Jermell was the name that was mentioned in the article. A guy like Jermell Charlo, who is knocking dudes out left, right, and center right now. A guy that has just very outspoken. Eddie Hearn could do something with a guy like that. He really could. If he can do something with Tony Bellew, and there's no disrespect to Tony Bellew. Tony Bellew's overachieved. But like when Eddie Hearn signed Tony Bellew, you gotta understand. When Eddie Hearn signed Tony Bellew, he was an average British fighter. He wasn't until later on in his career when he became better. Okay. And he eventually turned that guy into, because he moved them properly. He knew how to move. He knows how to move fighters properly. And the same thing with Joshua, moved them freaking perfectly. And that's why he's in the position he's in. So you can't get mad at Eddie Hearn. You really can't. You can't get mad at Eddie Hearn for at least attempting this. If anything, it should be applauded because a lot of times, I've heard boxing fans say, well, I'm frustrated that someone doesn't try to create their own thing, create like a league or something like that. And honestly, that's just not realistic. Boxing's not the UFC. It's too fragmented of the sport. There's too many power brokers. Their egos are too high. Unfortunately, that's just not the way the sport works. And I wish it would change. I really wish it would, but that's not reality. But Eddie Hearn's at least saying, hey, okay, I can't control the sport of boxing. No one man should have all that power, like the great Kanye West said. But I'm at least going to try to start my own thing. I'm going to have 40 boxing shows. Think about that, guys. 40 boxing shows. And he's going to have over 15 here in America, over 20 in the UK. There really is no promoter doing it like that. Just objectively speaking, like Bob Arum isn't promoting 20 shows in China because, I know Top Rank goes to China a lot. He's not promoting shows in China or England. Al Haymon's not promoting, or the people that he used to promote fights, they're not promoting that amount of shows around the world like that. So if anything, and these cards are going to happen, and his fighters going to keep active because his track record has proven that. If anything, in some ways, I'm not saying in some we have to wait to see what happens, but I'm saying it should be like we should look at it kind of as the positives because at least competition for boxing is good because at least Now in the American market, there'll be pressure on guys like Heyman and the people that he employs to make fights happen. You know, Heyman, Arum, Oscar De La Hoya. Now that there's another very, very, very top level competitor in the U.S. American boxing market, they can't rest in the laurels. They can't be comfortable, and they're gonna have to put on good quality fights to keep up. So there's many ways to look at it. I choose to be a little optimistic about it because I do like Eddie Hearn, what he's done in the UK. I'm optimistic that he can help American boxing. He only had 2 shows here so far. They've been okay shows. Not gonna lie, they haven't been the best cards in the world, or anything like that. But now with the streaming service, the announcement upon us that they're reporting, I think that now looking back on those shows, I kind of think those shows were experiments at this point. They were experiments because he signed one fighter in Jacobs. He put Miller on the card. I think they're really experiments as to what the numbers would look like if certain fighters fought. And mind you too, you got to keep in mind, Jacobs was the headlining fighter in both those cards. He fought Luis Arias in the first fight. Luis Arias, not a big name at all. Like him, but not a big name. Fought Luis Arias in the first fight, and then Miller fought Marius Wack. And then on top of that, that first Matchroom Boxing USA card was in Long Island. It was in Long Island. So because it was in Long Island, no disrespect to Nassau Coliseum, it's a nice venue. I've went there; it's a great venue, but it's not in the big. It's not one of those big venues that in one of the meccas, like in one of the big boroughs in New York. To get to that venue, you'd have to get on the train. You take the Long Island Railroad, and you got to stop at a certain point. It's not like being in the city, like being in Barclays Center, being in Madison Square Garden. It's quite different. The Nassau Coliseum and just where it's situated and how to get there, it's quite different than going to Barclays Center, where there's things happening all the time. So you might get visitors, tourists that see a damn ad and come into the fight. It's not like that at the Nassau Coliseum. The Nassau Coliseum is literally like, I don't want to say it's in the middle of nowhere because I don't want to disrespect Long Island, but like in comparison to Barclays Center, it's in the middle of nowhere. So really his first boxing show was, for me personally, I count the last one as the first boxing show because it was at the Barclays Center. It was at one of the big venues. And from what I heard, and from as far as tickets, I heard it did less tickets than was it Quillen versus Jacobs, but at the same time, it's like you gotta look at it like this. At the time when Quillen and Jacobs fought, Quillen was still a name. Quillen's from Brooklyn, Jacobs from Brooklyn. You had the whole battle from Brooklyn angle. It was for like a world title, so it made sense. This fight was a non-title fight. It was against an unknown 154-pound fighter moving up in weight. And yeah, so it did slightly less numbers from what I heard, but I don't know. It's just interesting, man. It's just very interesting. So my thing is just and I'm not gonna say and act like I know Eddie Hearn because I don't know Eddie Hearn personally like that. I met him 2 times. I met him once in late 2016, and I met him last November. So I've seen him once a year for the last 2 years. And he follows me on Instagram. He'd be watching my stories, stuff like that. So shout out to Eddie Hearn. But I don't know him like that. But what I do know is that the dude knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing, and he's not gonna do something like this without doing his numbers on it. Because to understand where Eddie Hearn is now, you gotta understand where he's been. Okay. His dad he grew up around the fight game his whole life. So his dad beat it into his head when he wanted to get into promoting boxing. You got to know your numbers. You got to know like as far as what the projected revenue could be, things like that. So he's not going to do something like this until he's done the hard numbers, okay? And he's not going to do something like this unless he has a couple. I'm not saying it's going to be 10 or 15 or 20, but a couple of notable names in American boxing. So just expect that. And also, now that I'm talking about it like this, I'm just now getting a flashback to an interview I watched recently. He was on IFL TV, and he was talking about how he wants to build the biggest stable in all boxing. He literally said that on IFL TV. I don't know if you guys saw it, but he said it on IFL TV. He wants to build the biggest stable in all boxing. So put it together. Streaming service, 16 American cards. I want to build the biggest stable in boxing. So it's not rocket science. You will. Now that I'm talking about it, I'm connecting the dots. I think you probably will see some pretty big names in American boxing sign with Eddie Hearn. So For the channels out there that say like, okay, well, he can't offer you much. This, that, and the third. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like to look at track record. I like to look at what he's done with fighters in terms of, because like a lot of American fighters, unfortunately, aren't big stars in America, and they should be. There's a hell of a lot of stars in America that should be bigger stars. Like Deontay Wilder should be a bigger star. The Charlos should be bigger stars. Terrence Crawford should be a bigger star. Hell, even though this guy is somewhat of a big star, he should probably be a bigger star. Danny Garcia should be a bigger star, honestly. All the wins he's gotten, all the world titles he's won, all the opponents he's fought in high profile fights, he should have a bigger profile. More people should know the name Danny Garcia. So I think it could be a good thing. But I'm gonna wait till the press conference till we reveal some more details before I judge the man, because it is what it is. But I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm ultra excited about it, because I'm not. I'm not really that excited about it, because I could see it being a potential roadblock because for a lot of fights. I mean, I'm thinking about it right now, right? Anthony Yarde, prospect I'm very excited about. But he's in the UK. He fights under Frank Warren. Eddie Hearn Eddie Hearn offered Anthony Yarde to fight for the British title. I think to fight Caleb Johnson, because a lot of my subscribers were in the comment section telling me my last Anthony Yarde video. That's what happened, and I went to research. So Caleb Johnson, Anthony Yarde for the British Cruiserweight title. That fight didn't happen because Yarde's team turned it down. Now, if Yarde's team was willing to accept that fight, it's still going to be harder to make, because now with DAZN, BT Sport, it's conflicts. It's conflicts. If you look at the biggest fights in boxing, and that's not a big fight, but I'm saying if you look at big fights in boxing history, the main thing that always holds them up is TV. It's TV deals. It's always the TV deals. Lewis Tyson was that way. I believe Lewis Tyson was the first ever fight. I don't know if it was the first ever, but it was one of the first like mega fights that Showtime and HBO both did like a kind of like a co-promotion. But it took forever to make the fight, mainly because of the TV networks. Remember the Pacquiao TV network. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. And I'm gonna reserve my judgment for the press conference. If anything, if I'm near my computer, because I'm not sure I'll be near my computer. I might be my girl tomorrow, but whenever the press conference is supposed to happen, if I'm near my computer, I want to live stream it so I can give you guys my live reaction. All right, because I actually think that'd be pretty fun to do. So, Eddie Hearn set to announce a new streaming service with DAZN, okay, in America. Supposedly going to charge $20. Not the best news for boxing fans. Coming off the heels of the ESPN Plus thing, where we're going to pay for certain fights on ESPN. We got Showtime, we got HBO. So it is what it is. The negatives are it's another bill for boxing fans. The positives are there's another competitor in the market. And if you look at any realm of business, just anywhere across life, competition is always good. Like, it's always good. It always brings out the best. Growing up as a kid, I used to be a big wrestling fan, massive wrestling fan. I could sit here and tell you about wrestlers from the early 2000s and parts of the 90s. Growing up as a kid that I watched. But, like wrestling was at its all-time high. And for those of you who really know wrestling, you know this. Wrestling was at its all-time high when WCW and WWE were both in that big ratings war. Remember that in like the 90s they had the Monday Night War. That's what they call it, Monday Night War. And, WCW had the likes of Sting and Bill Goldberg and guys like that. And WWE had The Rock, Stone Cold, and people were split. There was a massive ratings war for years. But because of that, we got fantastic wrestling show after fantastic wrestling show after fantastic wrestling show. Some of the best promos in the history of wrestling were made during that period of time. So, I mean, it's just something it's something to consider. It's something to consider. So I'm going to reserve my judgment because I don't know the details, but we'll see what happens.